What habits would have the biggest impact on helping you reach your goals? One of the biggest lessons I've had is around the utter uselessness of goals unless they're turned into habits or one-time actions and projects depending on the type of goal you're working on. I've found in my experience the magic combo of forming impactful business habits and sticking to them consistently. So start thinking about those goals that you're working on and let's turn them into something you can move closer and closer to every single day. I've talked a lot about how I started this year feeling really stagnant, stuck, and a little uninspired. These feelings were a big wake-up call that something had to change. In last week's video, I talked about how I found myself building a business that I didn't really want and the process I used to come back to center and realign myself on my vision for the business and my life. The second thing I did to get back on track, or better yet, on a whole new track, was to revisit my systems, which I've also talked about previously in my recent system sprint video, both of which I will link below. This is a quasi part 3. The third thing I did was to take those systems, take that vision, take those goals, and turn them into daily habits, or work daily habits, right? 5 days a week. So in this video, I'm going to share how I combined 75 Hard and James Clear's Atomic Habits habit stacks to revamp my day-to-day actions, aka my habits, and really live my vision in actual practice. There are 2 types of goals that I typically set every year. One type is a project-based goal. These are the ones that I have a whole lot of control over how I reach that goal and if I reach that goal, because all I'm concerned about is ticking the next item, the next action item off the list to complete the project. The other type of goals are achievement-based goals. These ones I have a lot less control over. Yes, I can control my input, but that doesn't necessarily translate into the outcome that I want. I'll be honest, I find achievement goals a little bit intimidating as somebody who likes to have a lot of control. However, the backbone of achievement-based goals are your habits, the things that you're doing on a daily or maybe weekly basis, depending on the goal itself, that actually move you closer to that goal. And by focusing on the habits, that's where you're going to find your control, your ability to be proactive with that goal and take measurable action. As long as you focus on doing the habit, albeit making sure it's the right habit for that particular goal, doing these habits consistently should be moving you closer to that goal every time you do it, right? We think about 1% improvements, right? These habits are like 1% closer to those goals. And so with these 2 thoughts in mind, I found myself very inspired by 75 Hard. One of my issues with 75 Hard on a personal front is, are these things that 75 Hard is telling me to do, are they really tied to the goals that I actually have? Anyone just telling you the habits that you should be adopting because I said so style isn't too helpful though, right? Unless you have a shared goal, I think it's much more helpful to think about your goals and what is the key performance action that is going to get you closer to it. Is it something that needs to happen on a daily or weekly basis? What I like about 75 Hard though is the finish line aspect of it, the tracking aspect of it, and the accountability of it. I came across an Instagram account at Sabrina Lee Socials who was talking about how to apply the 75 Hard methodology to business. And it really got my wheels turning. What are the business habits that fit within the 75 Hard structure? But even with her business edition of 75 Hard, I still found it really important to use the structure, but tailor my specific habits to my specific goals. So I started out just trying 75 Hard, and I got a couple of weeks, like a week and a half in, before I started skipping those habits because I had what I thought was at the time more important work to do, aka putting out fires and greasing squeaky wheels. So I knew I needed to pair this with another strategy, which is where James Clear's Atomic Habits came in. I've been a longtime fan of his work and have read the book multiple times. And one of the aspects that I always found really helpful is the idea of habit stacks, where you compare a habit that you want to form with something that you already do, ideally something enjoyable. And so I combined the habit stack theory with the business edition of 75 Hard to get consistency. So what are the daily things that I'm doing, and how can I pair each of those to something that is going to be one of those habits from my version of 75 75 hard. Or if I can't think of anything to pair it with, right, that I'm already doing, that it makes sense to do that habit while I'm doing it, what is a small treaty or bribe that I can use to A, add some joy into my day, and B, will pair it really nicely with the habit. Let's go over the habits, my habits for my version of business 75 hard or soft, because I'm habit stacking them with stuff I like. My first habit stack is drinking my coffee and writing for one Pomodoro, 25 minutes. Creating content is really important as a really important part of both my business. It is in the name after all, your content empire, and also for myself to be in alignment with my purpose. When I don't create content, when I let it get away from me, I feel disconnected from my business. It's as much about the output and having something to publish as it is about the ritual of getting my thoughts out and creating something. When business gets busy or life takes over and I start skipping this content creation part, I drift further and further away from that purpose. One thing I never skip, my morning coffee. So this habit stack was a really easy one to come up with and think about, right? The goal that this ties to is content creation and publishing content consistently. Every morning that I sit down and have my coffee, I set a timer and I write for at least 25 minutes while I'm sipping that coffee. This is actually the idea behind my content habit app too. I love that I start my workday having already created something. I've already created something of my own before I start consuming other people's content and other people's posts. It makes me feel majorly accomplished and really sets the tone for my day. A little tip here though, if you are going to adopt this habit stack of your own, is to make sure that you figure out what you're going to write before you sit down to actually write it. Some days I'm working on a script for a video, other days I'm working on social media posts that go along with a video. Sometimes I'm working on messaging or sales emails for an upcoming promotion or launch or funnel, but other days I'm just picking a few ideas that I'm curious about exploring, setting a timer and seeing where that takes me. It's a little bit like Julia Cameron's morning pages, my own business purpose version of it. The second habit stack that I've adopted is posting on Instagram, whether that's a story, a reel, or a carousel, right before taking my morning break. I usually have everything that I want to post in my Airtable Content Hub all ready to go, but I like to do it manually, the actual posting, so I can take some time to reply and respond to any comments and just have the active process of showing up, right? This, instead of being a standard habit stack of doing something while I do that habit, I do the habit spending 15 to 20 minutes posting on Instagram before I do something I enjoy, taking a break, right? So this is a little more in line with BJ Fogg's tiny habits methodology of the trigger habit. It might also be known as bribery, but no shame here. This particular habit relates to my business visibility goal. My biggest tip for this habit, if you're going to adopt something similar to your own, is have your content all ready to go. So all you have to do is post it, right? But I don't let not having something ready to post stop me, but I want to make it as easy as possible for me to actually follow through by having systems in place like an ideas bank for reels, a B-roll video library of things that I can easily pull and just write a caption for, and add a visual hook to the video, whether that's pulling something from an existing piece of content or, like me, pulling from my morning content habit, right, where I write for one Pomodoro. I find myself doing that fairly often as well. The next habit stack I've implemented is listening to a lesson of a course that I'm currently taking or a podcast episode during my morning walk. I live right next to the ocean and I want to make sure I'm making a point to enjoy it. So this one is a twofer. I get to walk my dogs and make sure that I'm actually following through on finishing that course I signed up for or listening to that podcast episode I'm curious about. I'm not usually someone who can listen to something interesting while I work. I'll get way too distracted. I like to hyper focus for whatever Pomodoro I'm working on. But I'm also someone who will buy the course and then not go through it because I don't really have time. So this makes sure that I'm setting aside an intentional time slot to actually go through those materials. This goal connects to around staying inspired and staying connected to what is going on in my industry or moving my business forward by learning new skills. I love learning, right? But I need to have time for it. And this is a way to find that time. I love the fact that this learning/walking time comes after I've already written something and created something. So I'm making sure not to consume other people's content before I've made a point of creating my own. A little quick tip here, if you decide to take this habit stack on for yourself, is to make sure that you're going through these lessons as you're going through these lessons or listening to this podcast episode to when you get home, or, even right after you get home, or even like a voice note as you're walking, is to jot down or voice down a few notes or ideas that you've had around whatever lesson you've just gone through, and create some time to implement it, right? So no course in the world is going to do you any good unless you are actually taking action on it, right? I find that the hard part with any course is finding the time to actually go through all the videos or go through the accompanying podcast episodes, however they've chosen to deliver it. So I need to go through those before I can implement it, but finding the time to go through those is usually what keeps me stuck, right? But I just want to make sure I'm scheduling some implementation time after I've gone through those lessons. So all of the goals and all of the reasons that you signed up for that course, whatever that course is in the first place, comes through actually taking action. So that's a very, very important part of this. Yes, go through the lessons, but that's the passive part. We also want to make sure we're implementing as well. The habit stack that has made the biggest difference is doing one income generating activity and then rewarding myself by reading a chapter of whatever novel I happen to be reading at the time. I have a bad habit, a tendency to let money things and money chores kind of pile up. And so by making an intentional effort to deal with at least one of them every day, I've seen a big uptick in my monthly revenue and get to avoid feeling like I have a huge backlog of things to deal with. Some of the income generating activities I've done are promoting one of my offers on social media, writing a sales email, sending a sales email, following up on inquiries or proposals, following up on delinquent payments, following up with current or past clients who've expressed an interest in ongoing support, sending out invoices I've been putting off, canceling subscriptions for things I no longer use. This daily habit supports my revenue goals for the year. My little tip, if you are interested in doing some version of this, would be to create a list of all of the ideas of income generating activities that you could do. What are your money opportunities? I learned this years ago from Denise Duffield Thomas, but it was basically to do an Eisenhower matrix for all of the money opportunities in front of you. It's about training your brain to see those money opportunities. You create a list of all the things you could do and then sort them into quadrants. Quick and low ROI, slow and low ROI, quick and high ROI, and then slow and high ROI. Then you can prioritize that list based on that quadrant, whatever quadrant it's in. The final habit stack that I tacked on to this iteration of 75 Hard Business Edition was to have 5 conversations on Instagram while watching one episode of whatever TV show I happen to be obsessed with at the moment, whether that's Real Housewives or some juicy drama. One of my big values in business and one of the big things I was craving more of this year is connection. And so when it came to thinking of an actionable and measurable habit to pair with this goal, this felt like a really easy place to start. It's super measurable, right? Like 5 conversations. It's something that I can get done, and it's something that I also paired with something I would be doing anyways. And instead of just wasting my time and mind-numbingly watching a show and rotting my brain, I could get something out of that time as well. So, are you ready to create your own version of 75 Hard, the business edition? Get clear on your vision and goals. This is really the first thing that you're going to want to do, is get really, really clear on your vision and your goals. I don't think I could have come up with my habits and my habit stacks had I not taken that reverse engineering approach. So first the vision, then from there the goals, and then come up with the habits. The second thing you're going to want to do is pair each of those goals with daily habits. So what is the key performance action that is going to make that goal happen? How are you going to get, as they say, 1% improvement? How are you going to make 1% progress towards that goal through those daily actions, through those daily habits? What is one action that is going to get you there? Number 3 is to pair those habits with pleasure. This is especially true if you're having trouble getting consistent with those habits. If you are setting these habits, wanting to stick with them, and then not following through, the best thing you can do is pick something that is joyful or pleasurable that you're already doing in your life and pair the habit with that. Number 4, commit to a time frame, like say 75 days, and then make sure to track it. Finally, you're going to want to check in and adjust as you go and at the end as well. These might be habits that you stick with for the duration of your business lifetime, right? But they could also change and evolve over time as your goals evolve as well. So let me know in the comments, what is one of your goal-inspired habits going to be? Then if you found this video helpful, give me a like and hit subscribe to be notified when the next video drops. Until next time, happy empire building.